It's kind of the way that jazz is. Sometimes it's just this cacophony of improv, and you just got
Yeah,
to get through it, right?
there you go.
So it's great to see you again. The last time, speaking of like mayhem, the last time we spoke was in May of 2020, and we didn't know what the hell was going on.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Gosh, yeah. Oh, doesn't that just seem like a lifetime ago
Oh
now?
man, I kept thinking when I would talk to people during that, if someone would have grabbed me in 2018 and said, "Look, this is the political, social, and reality of your environment that's going to happen in 2020," I would be like, "There's no possible way. That has to be a
Yeah.
book, a
Science
movie."
fiction.
Yeah,
Yeah, really.
it's very bizarre. But the beauty of what's going on right now is that you have a brand new album out. We're in a brand new era here. How does it feel to have a new album and just kind of the world's waking up?
Well, it's thrilled. I mean, just the fact that to do another one and with these guys, and this is my fourth album with Ted, third with these guys in particular. And so the patina, effect is there. Of course, I a benefit of their own patina because they work together in threes and in various combinations of twos so much with so many different artists, amazing artists. So there's all that history that you get to draw from too. So it's fun. This one was a lot of fun to work on. We actually started working on the idea for a new album right before the pandemic, and I don't even remember what the idea was. It's not this.
Yeah.
And now we're in the middle of the pandemic, and then kind of tried to move forward with it, but it was very hard because music needs to happen in real time with people being in the same space.
Yeah.
So we kind of inched along, and then the pandemic was over kind of sort of for a moment, and then it wasn't. And anyway, it was a long circuitous route to coming up with this set list and this collection. And the we of it is, of course, Ted, and then Deborah Grace Weiner, who's this brilliant musicologist. She just holds the Great American Songbook in her head, and she for years ran a brilliant series at the 92nd Street Y called Lyrics and Lyricists. And she has a sort of an updated version of that now going at Dizzy's, where she does shows several times a year, focusing on an era, on a composer, on a singer. And so anyway, Deb is just one of the smartest people I know. So I go to her with a theme, and she sort of goes, okay, I think I can kind of sort of make sense of that. And that eventually together becomes the patter for a concert. But I'll give the idea to Ted and to Deb, and then we each sort of come up with our list of songs that we that might be right. And then we just hang out and we try stuff and we listen to stuff and we try in different keys and we try in different feels, and eventually, very eventually, end up with where we are. This one, I listened to a lot of Ahmad Jamal, a lot of Dave Brubeck.
Yeah.
And their works were very instrumental in sort of inspiring feels that we were going to go with. We went very percussion heavy on a few of them. I just wanted some, I don't know, more of a connection to the planet.
Yeah.
That, and Ray Marchica, there's nothing Ray can't do. So, and in fact, I'm kind of rambling here, but
No, you're good.
the claves are on, I guess, Blue Moon, and I really wanted them to be on this album. Claves came from when my mother had gone to Cuba in the 50s and loved it. It was a big trip for her. She had a great time. It was before I was born, probably, her last hurrah before she was saddled with kids. And so she had these claves that I grew up with. And I mean, she wasn't a drummer or a percussionist or anything. They were just sort of in the family music room. And whenever we were having we would all pull out the tambourines and the whatnot and make ridiculous sing-alongs just with the family for years. But anyway, they've been sitting all by themselves in a little box, and I thought, these have to go to Marchica. So Ray has them, and then he brought them out to play on the album. And the first time I heard it, I just burst into tears. It was like having Mom back in the room with me. It was fun.
Yeah, that is wonderful. It sounds like so many good things were a part of this after we lived through what we lived through. And my question to you is, did you find yourself approaching music and art in a whole different way because of this introspection we all lived through with COVID? Did things change like that?
I would say the main change for me was I had not realized how much I relied on going to live arts to help me process life. I've gone to the theater. We all have, for all my life. And I just, first of all, it never occurred to me that there would come a day where you couldn't go.
Yeah.
Who could imagine that? Or go to a museum, or go to an art exhibit, or go to a ballet recital, and suddenly when all of that was gone, I felt there was some sort of internal conversation with the subconscious and the collective that was just silenced. It was like not being able to dream. There's just so much of life. Well, when we most needed it, when we needed to be, what the heck is, going on, when we're all sitting in isolation for all those months. So that was the main change. I think I'd like to think that at some level I always recognize them as valuable and grateful to be a part of them, to the extent that I have been as a journeyman performer. But as an audience member, wow, I will never take walking across the threshold of any performance space for granted again.
Yeah.
I think it's necessary, for all of us. This is sort of weird, but I had, this is years ago, and I ran an international theater festival. And so one of my jobs, besides going around anywhere and begging for money, because it was a not-for-profit, was I would travel the world a couple of times a year, take my little son with me. We'd have soccer ball and homework, and off we'd go. And we'd go to theater festivals around the world. And the first couple of years I noticed, I thought, oh, it's just a funny coincidence. And then as it kept happening for the 8 years that I was doing it, I realized, no, it's not a coincidence. And what was happening was that, so these festivals would be a compilation, like any festival, of work from around the world that had been being developed over the last year or two. So these artistic directors in Bogota and Moscow and Singapore had not been in communication with one another when they were creating their works, but these works were, and then they would be curated and brought together. And there was such similarity, not all of them, but a good, hefty percentage, 80-90% of the works being done were sort of coincidentally about a central theme, like where is God, or what is happening with immigration and migration, what is the fallout from that. And these would be plays, they wouldn't be the same, but they would touch on that topic. So what's happening with migrant workers in Southeast Asia, and what is the story of farmers being forced to migrate because of climate change. So there would be plays, some abstract, some dance theater, some literal narrative, sort of fictional narratives, or docu-fiction, narrative of these topics. And the only explanation was that there's a collective consciousness that talks to each other. And these ideas are in the ether, and they're being massaged through the arts. They're being dealt with through the arts. So anyway, all of those reasons, I think it's, and for whatever, everybody just does their tiny bit, and this is a tiny bit that we did. But, if this album has a conversation for anyone with others, or just in their own minds, of what is it like to get lost, or let's get lost, and what is that journey like, and how do you metabolize loss, and how do you embark on a new adventure? Do you embark on a new adventure? Anyway, it's more questions. There are no solutions in this, but
Sure.
hopefully there's some ideas in it or moments in it that people can feel companioned.
But that's the idea of it. It's a journey. I mean, all of this is hedging on that, but it all goes back to that idea of jazz, that feel good realm that we all just, it makes life more colorful, you know.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm,
so
mhm.
do the crowds feel different when you perform in front of them now versus the way it
Oh,
was before?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, especially when we were first back and performing, people were just so happy to be out and be
Yeah.
rubbing elbows with each other and hanging out with their friends. And oh yeah, there was a real my partner Patrick and I got to do a play last year in England for 7 months, and in many instances, the theaters that we were in was their first time back after the pandemic. And honest to God, we could have stood on stage in a tutu and done jumping jacks, and they would have been thrilled. So that sense of, coming together in these wonderful venues, being reinvigorated and have life breathe back into them, that was extraordinary. I mean, I hope that time never comes again in our life, but to
Yeah.
feel that wave of exit, and we're kind of sort of back to normal, however shaky it may be.
Yeah. So, you've been in different artistic incarnations in your career. How
Mm.
satisfying is this jazz career? It seems,
Oh God.
is it just such a level of freedom and joy that's almost
Oh,
unbroken?
it's such an adventure. And that is because of Tedd Firth. I met Ted about 15 years ago, and I had been working with a wonderful music director for 22 years. God, does that math add up? I guess I am that old. Anyway, whatever the years are, a long time and then a long time. And I'm so sorry for this noise. Okay.
Oh, I can't hear anything. You're fine.
Okay, good.
There's
All
like Zoom's muffling everything out. All I
right.
hear is you.
Okay. So I was to do a thing in New York and with a bunch of other artists, and they said, but you have to use our music director. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that. But of course I said yes. You always say yes. So I came into the rehearsal studio for day one, and here was this kid. And and very quiet, very nice, and very modest. And I thought, well, this is just not going to go well. Oh my God. And then he put his hands to the keys, and that was it. That was it. I was like, oh my God, who is this person? Ted is, and also the music director that I had been with all those years, Ron Abel, just a chosen family, wonderful guy. He's the first to say that his go-to sweet spot is not jazz, and it is for Ted. And I was really kind of longing to move in that direction. So with full blessings, I graduated, on to Ted. And I mean, every time I get to work with him, we have a gig coming up next week. Yeah, in a week. Yeah, in New York. It's just, all you have to do is climb up to the high dive and then just go. And you never really entirely know what's going to happen. It's never the same twice, which is one of the great glories of jazz. You sort of absorb the moment and spew it back out to the world. But Ted does things with songs. Well, I think because I've made my way primarily as an actress, I approach the songs largely as a storyteller.
Yeah.
And Ted plays the subtext of the lyric.
Yeah.
He, not a single note is random. It's and he's either augmenting the thought you've just stated or introducing the thought you're about to state, or echoes the thought. I mean, and he breathes with you. I asked him that one time. I said, so how do you figure out what to play? And he said, it's all about the breath. He feels, I mean, now we've had so many years together, he feels you breathing, and in that breath for the singer, ergo they're not making a sound, so it's up to him then to to move the moment forward, to hold it in silence, to anyway augment it in whichever way he sees fit.
Yeah.
I had an experience with him once. We'd been on the road for a while, and this was our last night of this particular show, and we had a bass drummer and percussionist. The drummer and percussionist were young guys, energetic, good. And I knew that they were in absolute awe of Tedd, you know, and a little bit, well, we all wanted to do well for Tedd.
Sure.
So, but they in particular, and because they were new to him, and they were blown away by his charts and what he was doing and all of that. It's generosity of spirit. So there was a penultimate number that we had that was a big percussion, big drum solo, then percussion solo. And I loved doing this song. But last night and I knew that these guys hadn't left it all on the table. They were good. The audience didn't know the difference, but I turned to them and I said, take your shirts off. Yeah, give me everything you got. And Tedd said, what do you want, Linda? Faster? And I said, no, more. It's like, oh my God. So Tedd stood up and he took his jacket off and he folded it and he put it down. He took the music off the music stand, laid the music stand down, and then pushed it up. So now he's peering into the strings of the piano, still standing, and he dove into the piano with his hands. His wedding ring is banging on the strings, and it's this beautiful sort of harmonics, harp like sound. And he's off. Tedd is going. He's not sure where he's going, but he's off on a journey. I turned to the boys and they're like, oh my God, okay. And after, maybe a minute or whatever it was of this beautiful sort of ethereal sound, Tedd looked at the boys and nodded the percussionist in. And off he went. Oh my God, I get chills talking about it. It was so exciting.
That's cool.
And then he invited the drummer in. And then eventually on that, and then he went back to playing the piano. They did all of their solos. Then it was on that I got to start singing. And it was as close to being in outer space, I think, as I will ever come. I felt like we were on a magic carpet ride in the music of the spheres. It was something other. It was an act of total trust and a proof that harmony exists. It was a metaphysical, existential moment that was beautiful. And I talked to him about it the next day, and I said, what was that? Is that where you live? And he looked at me and he said, yeah. So cool. That's what you get when you work with Tedd. That's where he's willing to go and make the necessary sacrifices to get there. He puts in so many hours of work a week, a day, with so many people, and he gets stretched because of that, I think, in so many different directions.
Yeah.
So it's profound.
Absolutely, it's profound. And that's the reason why you surround yourself around stellar people like that. Brilliance,
Yeah.
So the new album, it's wonderful as usual, and it continues this lineage of work that you're putting out. Where's the best place for people to get it? Any live shows, anything that's coming up, previous work, where can they go?
Thank you so much. Yeah, September 11, the Green Room in New York, November 4th at Crazy Coq's in London, October 18, I'm part of a show with Tom Wopat at the Rose Hall in New York, Jazz at Lincoln Center, and then again November 19th at Dizzy's. So anyway, so there's that. And then it's wherever you find music these days. I don't know. There are hard copies that you can get through my website, lindapurl.com, but also Amazon, iTunes, Spotify, you can listen for free. So it's all the usual places.
It's everywhere. Linda, it's a joy. Thank you. I'm so good. I'm just so glad. I remember thinking with all these conversations during the pandemic, I can't wait to talk when this whole thing's over with. So right now, there's a level of this that's so satisfying, cathartically full circle. So it's so great to catch up with you. Best of luck with this album, and keep on putting it out there.
Well, you too. Thanks for doing what you do. It's very, very, very helpful.
Standing on the shoulders of giants. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Linda.